guys, au pairing is an investment. You are learning a new country, you are learning a new language, so it really is an investment, and the pocket money you're receiving is not a salary like it is in a normal job, because you are investing in yourself and you're receiving this incredible experience. Hey guys, it's Graham with AuPairWorld, and today I'm going to be telling you the 4 worst things about being an au pair. Before I tell you what the worst things are, if you haven't already, please like this video and subscribe to AuPairWorld so you can keep up with all the new content that we produce. That being said, let's jump right into this video. Now, let me preface this by saying, every job has its downsides. Just because some aspects of au pairing suck does not mean that the whole au pair experience is bad, obviously, because I keep on coming back doing it, and so many other au pairs do too. While there are definitely some things that I would change about au pairing if I could, that doesn't mean that it's not worth every second of it, and for every bad thing I can name 10 good things. So do keep that in mind as you're watching this video. Also, if you're an au pair and I missed something that you think could be improved upon, drop it down in the comments below. We would love to hear your thoughts. So without wasting any more time, let's get into the first thing that really irks me about being an au pair, and that is your paid peanuts. If you've never really looked into how much au pairs are paid, brace yourself. I mean, it's not a job where you're gonna make much money. As a matter of fact, I think if you work out how much au pairs are paid hourly, it's illegal. Like, it's not even legal. We're paid so little. So the au pair salary is not very high, but they call it pocket money for a reason. Here in the European Union, au pairs are paid somewhere between 70 and 120 euros a week generally. Some of the cheaper countries like Spain and Italy will tend to pay you less, while the more expensive countries like Austria and France are going to pay you more. The big thing I have to keep in mind here is just because they're paying you more does not mean you're making more money. My 70 euros here in Seville goes much further than the 100 euros my au pair friends in Paris get. So do keep that in mind if you're considering how much you're gonna make. If you choose to become an au pair in the USA, you'll get paid around $200 US a week, or I guess about 180 euros a week. So pretty good, all things considered. And then I think Australia is even a little bit more than that. So the amount of pocket money you receive does depend on the country you're in, and really it just depends on the family. Another thing to keep in mind when you're considering pocket money is how much your family gives you for transit passes, insurance, and or education. My family pays for my transit and my insurance here in Spain. So once you do add those expenses to the original pocket money, you are making more money. And on top of that, you have to think you are living for free room, free board. You're not paying for any of that. So once you really do start adding all the numbers up, being an au pair financially is not a bad decision. The big thing I have to tell myself here is au pairing is an investment. You are learning a new country, you are learning a new language, so it really is an investment, and the pocket money you're receiving is not a salary like it is in a normal job, because you are investing in yourself and you're receiving this incredible experience. You're paid in other ways than just money. The second thing that I'm not so fond of with au pairing is you live with your bosses / you live where you work. I personally have a love-hate relationship with this point, because living with your bosses and living where you work does kind of suck, but at the same time, you get such incredible cultural immersion that it kind of weighs itself out. Nevertheless, living where you work means that it can be really difficult to divide working time with your off time. I guess another way to put this would be finding boundaries is next to impossible. A good example of this, in my very first au pair experience, I was a summer au pair in Madrid, Spain. It was so lovely, and oftentimes in the evenings, I would go to the community swimming pool, which was in the center of like 20 townhouses. I like to go right after siesta, so like at 6 p.m. when nobody was there, but sure enough, before long, I would realize that my kids would show up without their parents because my host parents knew I was there, and then friends would start to show up without their parents, And before I knew it, there would be like 7 or 8 kids there without any other adults because the other adults knew that I was there. So living where you work or living close to where you work means that finding boundaries and setting time off for yourself can be so difficult. Even in my current host family, a lot of the times at night, my 8-year-old will want to come in and read with me, or my 13-year-old will want to come in and chat. And while I love those moments, and those are the moments that make it so valuable, nonetheless, it's kind of exhausting, especially when you're just wanting some time for yourself. Another aspect of living with your bosses is it's kind of hard to turn off the work mentality, and it can be weird to distinguish your host parents from your bosses. I had a job at a bakery back in the US before I was an au pair, and if I had a disagreement with a coworker or with my boss, when I clocked out that day, that was the end of it. I wasn't going to see them for another couple of days normally. But if I have a disagreement with my host parents or with my host kids, I live with them. I sleep under the same roof that they do. So it can just be really awkward if you're trying to deal with stuff like that and just finding some space and personal time. The big suggestion I have here to make this point less of a pain is to clarify right up front about your boundaries and your working time. Be sure to have a specific conversation with your host parents or your au pair about your specific working times and what being off really means. And au pairs, don't be afraid to say no, or don't be afraid to bring up an issue if you feel like you're being overworked. It's something that a lot of us feel, and there's nothing wrong with talking with your host parents about it. The third worst thing about being an au pair is working with kids. Once again, I feel like this point is a double-sided coin because working with kids can be so rewarding and so nice and so fun, but it can also suck your soul. I think if anyone loves working with kids, it's me. I really do. Working with kids is not just rewarding, like I said a second ago, but it really is fun. It gives you a chance to be a kid again. It's so sweet, and there can be so many good moments where you grow and you bond with your host kids, but kids are exhausting. They're so tiring, and it just makes the job of an au pair a little bit more difficult. One of the hardest things for me with working with kids is that kids are so unpredictable. You never know what they're gonna do. You never know what their mood is gonna be, and that just makes your job a little bit harder because you're always on your toes and you're always watching out for what they're gonna do next. Like I said earlier, I worked in a bakery before becoming an au pair, and the great thing about having a job like that is I knew that when I went in, I was gonna do a certain thing every day. There was a certain amount of routine, and I would quit at the same time. But working with kids is never like that. You never know what you're gonna get when you wake up in the mornings, which means that your job is fun and new and exciting, but it also means that it can be really taxing and exhausting. I think I did not really appreciate the value of a boring, predictable job before I became an au pair, because yes, working with kids is fun, it really is, but constantly being on the lookout for what they're gonna do and constantly waiting to see what their next step is can really exhaust you and just take away from the experience. One of the big suggestions I have to minimize the pain that comes from working with children is to be sure to set time aside for yourself where you do things that you enjoy. One of the things that I really enjoy doing is when my host parents get home at night, which means that I'm off work, I love going out with my rollerblades and skating around the city or going for a jog. Just something every day that gives me a bit of fresh air by myself. And of course, this is difficult during COVID with lockdowns and restrictions, but it can even mean just 15 minutes of meditation in your room by yourself, or going out for a walk by yourself, whatever you can do to just get a little bit of alone time and just recenter yourself. A little pro tip that I'm going to throw in for free here is if you have any control of their bedtimes, try to make their bedtimes as consistent as possible. My current host family is really good about making sure their kids are in bed at the same time, but a lot of Spanish families are not. Spanish kids will go to bed quite late. So if you're noticing a consistent pattern where the kids are grumpy or they're not getting enough sleep, maybe talk with the host parents about setting a more strict bedtime that's not only going to help the kids, but going to help you. Because when you're happy and you're content and the kids are happy and they're content, the whole situation is just gonna go a lot more smoothly. The last worst thing about being an au pair is sometimes it can be really lonely. I feel like this topic is kind of the black sheep of the au pair world because I never hear people talking about this side of au pairing, the side that can be a bit lonely sometimes. Especially right now during COVID times, it can be really difficult to meet friends or find new places, explore your city, get to know new people. And as a result, being an au pair right now, more than ever, can be a really lonely experience. Any current or former au pair can attest to the fact that having friends through your au pair experience can completely change your outlook on your host country, on your host family, because having somebody that understands your situation, understands exactly where you're at, is such a breath of fresh air in the au pair world. Don't get me wrong, there is nothing wrong with hanging out with your host family. I love spending time with my host family. But at the end of the day, you really do need a support system outside of your host family, outside of your host home, that can prop you up on those lonely days. When I first came to Seville about 6 months ago now, I made the mistake of not really putting myself out there to meet new people. I was so focused on getting my residency and meeting my host family, getting into a routine, that I never even really thought about putting out time to meet people my age or to make friends. And as a result, I found out a couple months later that after 3 months in Spain at that point, or 4 months, I really didn't know that many people. So recently, thankfully, I have started reaching out and making friends, but it is something that I missed out on for a long time, and I really felt the effects of it. One thing I will say is the longer you're in your host country, the easier this is gonna get, because you're gonna get used to the city, you're gonna get used to the culture and the way things work. But those first couple of months, when you're without friends, when you're without a support system, those couple months can be so difficult. They can be very lonely, which once again just underscores the importance of making friends and establishing a support network. Even during COVID times, there are loads of ways to meet people. One of my favorite ways, and the way that I pretty much met all of my friends here, is language school. Most au pairs go to language school for at least some portion of your au pair stay, and that's a great way to meet other people your age who are in similar situations, because most of the people at my language school were also au pairs. Another way that I've never tried but I've heard of is to set up a language exchange. Perhaps call the university close by, or go on Facebook and look up Erasmus groups and find out if there's anyone wanting to learn your language, and perhaps you want to learn their language, and you could do a sort of language exchange. On a separate but related topic, Erasmus Facebook groups or au pair Facebook groups are great ways to meet other people your age in your host city, and I'm sure if you explore some of those options, you will meet people that are your age and you will make friends. My biggest suggestion here is to just put yourself out there. Don't be shy. Don't be afraid to ask someone to go out for a coffee or go for a walk with you. The times when I've done that, when I've asked that simple question, have paid off so much for me. And now I am starting to make great friendships that I'm positive I'm gonna hold on to for a very long time. Alright guys, so those are the 4 worst things about being an au pair in my opinion. And like I've said, for every bad thing I can think of, there are 10 good things. The au pair experience is so good, and don't let these couple little things drag you down. If you've enjoyed this video, please be sure to like it and subscribe to AuPairWorld, and leave us a comment down below letting us know what you think. Thanks so much for watching, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Muchas gracias, and bye bye. Hasta luego.